Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Many of us will already know and love the inspiring and varied content from the vegan sheepdog out across all social media. So today we are very excited to be talking with the man behind the alias, Chris Peed. Join us as we learn all about his ethical journey, what drives his advocacy and content, and also just the whole brand new podcast. I'm very excited to talk about that. It's a brilliant one. How It All Vegan. Great
Perfect
name.
name.
Which is available on all good podcast channels, and there will be links throughout this. So thank you so much for joining us today, Chris.
Well, I really appreciate you guys asking me to join and have a conversation and share my story and my journey. So I appreciate your time and all you guys do.
It is so wonderful to meet the man behind the name at last. If you think that you haven't heard or seen the sheepdog, the vegan sheepdog before, you most definitely will have, because Chris's content is literally shared everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Like you will not have not seen it. And so now, we hope to get a lot more followers for you today if they're not already realizing, that there is this amazing man, amazing advocate behind the vegan sheepdog. So we should really start at the beginning and how it all began for you. Regular viewers of our show will know that we always like to start by, asking how our guests got started on that ethical journey, because it allows us to see what those meeting points are between our carnage selves and the compassionate versions that we become. As we said just before we went live, we've got two ex-hunters and an ex-dairy farmer on a vegan conversation here today. So hey, and so that's a pretty great combination. We can all change. And in doing our research for this interview, we realized that both you and Gareth here actually share a lot of similarities in your journeys, including the significance of an animal named Dudley. Would you like to share with our audience how it came to be that an ex-hunter became the compassionate being and advocate that you are today?
First off, that's an incredible intro. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I owe a lot of this to my wife. I was not interested. I was not listening to anything about veganism. On our first date, we went to a place called Young's Jersey Dairy, and we even talked about veganism. She said that she could never go vegan because she could never give up cheese. And I said, well, that's great, because I can't do that anyway. I'd never give up meat. Over the years, we've had arguments about hunting and fishing and how cruel that was. But yet, she was continuing to buy, dead animals packaged at the store, and we never really thought twice about it. So she started following a cow. His name was Dudley. She started following him online, and she found herself really caring about him and what he was doing, what he was interested in, and just the crazy antics and almost games he would play every day. And she found herself really loving this cow. And then she found herself feeling like a hypocrite because she's feeding other cows and chickens and pigs to our family. So we laugh about this now, and it's kind of the big joke, but she was afraid to tell me that she was done eating meat. So she called me at work one morning and said, I'm done eating meat. I love you. Click. And she hung up on me. So we always joke about it. And I was like, well, that was different. A little bit later, I called her back and I said, look, if that's something you want to do, that's fine. I won't force you to cook anything at home, or I won't bring anything into home you don't want to. But I'm still going to do my own thing when I go out to lunch with my friends, when I do, whatever I'm doing. And that's kind of how we operated for the first couple months. What changed my life, and I didn't realize how important this was going to be to me, but I planned a surprise trip for our wedding anniversary to go to this sanctuary and meet Dudley. Honestly, I thought even at that point, planning this trip, I thought we would go back to the way life was before. I'd get some brownie points, be the good husband, and enjoy our trip. But I didn't know. I had no idea what to expect when we got there. And meeting Dudley and feeling his presence, his spirit, his being, his just energy, like it clicked with me. It was almost like a lightning bolt. And I said, I get it. I understand it. Let's do this. And that's what started my journey for me.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I just can't help but draw so many similarities with mine, because I was
Yeah.
the same. I was, formerly a hunter when I was back in Wales, and when Jackie decided to go vegan. At that stage, I'd never entertained vegetarianism, vegan. I was the
You
same.
used to laugh at vegans.
Yeah, I was the case of, like, I love you and I support you, but no way in hell am I doing that. But for me, it was a whole 5 days later. I suppose we were living in a van at the time on the road, and so very close proximity. So it wasn't like I could go and cook my corpse elsewhere or anything. So it's lovely. It warms my heart as well to hear how we both had an animal ambassador in the form of our own Dudleys. When we went vegan, we were staying on a working sheep farm, and being the compassionate types we are, the farmer there assigned us with the task of caring for the orphan lambs, which is quite often the case on sheep farms. That they're not hardy creatures, and so a lot of them pass away very quickly. And so, we became adopted parents for Casper and Dudley, 2 little lambs. And it was just so lovely to have that time with them and actually make that connection of, it wasn't what I was eating, but who I was eating.
Yeah.
And we were there with our dog at the time, and we saw the same connection between, our canine companion and the sheep, because we go for a walk in the field, the sheep would follow us with the dog. We managed to get Casper away to a sanctuary. Unfortunately, Dudley passed away unexpectedly, but we managed to get Casper to a sanctuary, and Casper the sheep was far more well behaved in the van trying to get him to the sanctuary than the dog was. So
he is still there to this day, living his best life.
Yeah, he's got a big lion's mane now for a sheep, so he's the little lion man. But
so Gareth, we have another similarity then. So Dudley in my story had an unfortunate incident and had to go. So anytime you take livestock and have to put them under sedation, that puts them at risk. And he had a ulcer that burst during surgery and did not survive the surgery. So I share your pain and reverence in that name and that spirit of, who they were. So just it's odd the similarities there. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing as well. Yeah,
he had a very deep connection, didn't he? You were really heartbroken when he passed away. He was very devastated.
Like, I'm not ashamed as a bloke to say I sat in the field bawling my eyes out after Dudley passed, and even now I'm actually welling up about it. Because you just have, once you make that connection, it just it means everything to you. I actually named Dudley though from a Jesus Lizard song. I don't know if anyone here listens to them, but here comes I think it's Along Comes Dudley.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to the question, I know this sanctuary visit was a huge moment for you, and over the years you've taken your kids to the sanctuaries now. How has it been for you watching them approach that sentientism barrier and interacting with our fellow non-human animals?
It's been incredible to see, and we've had a little bit of some different stages. So my wife and I were a blended family. I had 4 daughters from a previous marriage. She had 2 boys, and we have a little boy together. So our older kids, they grew up the way we were, raised, and for them, they caught on right away. We rescued a cow and took him to the sanctuary as well, and they really kind of clung to it and got attached to these animals really quickly. Our youngest, Henry, so he's 7 now. When we went vegan, he was like a year and a half, he was probably closer to 2 at that point. So he's never known any different. So like this weekend, or actually it was Tuesday, we took a sheep or a goat that was rescued. Good Lord. We took a goat that was rescued that was found running through town down here. And we took him to a sanctuary, Red Oak Animal Rescue, which is outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. Wonderful place. But we took Henry down there, and his connection with animals is so much deeper than even the other kids. He started getting sad while we were driving down there, and he had never met this goat. And he said, my wife asked him, she says, what are you upset about? And she goes, well, I'm going to miss him. and he had literally just met this goat. So he's, it's been awesome to watch our kids and awesome to watch them, follow this. We do having a mixed household. The girls, when they go back to their mom's house, and they don't agree and they're not on the same page, and it's difficult. And we've had some difficult conversations, and so they kind of get bombarded with things when they go back to their moms. But when they come here, they love being compassionate to animals, and they love coming here. And the first thing they do is starting to get into vegan snacks and different food my wife may have already ready for them. So it's always fun.
Oh, brilliant.
That is awesome.
I can't remember. The goat's got a fantastic
Fancy Jeff.
Fancy
Jeff.
Fantastic. If you're not already following Chris on Instagram, on social, please look up the Vegan Sheepdog and you will see some of the most recent posts are about Fancy Jeff.
That was hilarious, the way it just so we get there, and we'd been talking, and Wendy Lake, who runs Red Oak, she asked Henry, she goes, "What do you think we should name him?" He's like, right away. I mean, he didn't hesitate. He was Jeff. And she goes, "Should we do that with a J or a G?" And he's like, G. And so she goes, "Well, that's fancy." And so I kind of snickered and just said Fancy Jeff. And she goes, "Well, his name is Fancy Jeff." So
that is perfect. Perfect. So what a majestic name for a well-deserved as well.
Yes, he will definitely enjoy his life where he's at, and they'll take good care of him.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, I will. I'll definitely follow Red Oak Animal Rescue.
Yes.
It comes up as raw, doesn't it? If you just think
Yes,
of
it
raw,
does.
as in
Yep.
lions raw. So, and yeah, I have to ask, and I've been so curious to find this out because I'm sure this will be a question on the minds of our audience, or whoever's been following you for a while now. But how did you get the title The Vegan Sheepdog? And it's really funny when I think about it, because when I thought of the Vegan Sheepdog, I was like, oh, well, sheepdog, they go and chase around sheep, don't they, and round them up and scare them. And but you've got a completely different take on it, which I like so much better.
Yes, that is what sheepdog do, right? But they're also defending that flock. While there are some things we'll disagree on, they are defending that flock from predators. So for me, I started out, when we first started our journey, we went vegetarian, and then we went almost a year and a half before we went vegan, as we learned more about the dairy industry and the cruelty behind the egg industry. So finally, on January 13th, we were like, all right, we're done. So I started out as the gentle sheepdog, and I chose sheepdog because I want to defend my family, defend my herd, defend my flock. And that's kind of always been my mentality, protect those around me that I can, whether it be friends, family, people in public. I've never been one to back down and allow people to bully someone else. So that's just kind of been my nature. Gentle because I thought, oh, I'm being kind to animals. Meanwhile, not knowing the horrors of the dairy industry. As I learned about that, and once we finally went vegan, I said, you know what? I'm going to be more poignant with my name, and I changed it to the Vegan Sheepdog. So, it's just kind of my persona, that I want to defend animals and defend those less fortunate than me, and that's how I'm going to carry out my life, and that's just kind of who I am.
Oh, we absolutely love that. Yeah, it's a great way of looking at it, and I think especially now with masculinity, there's so much sort of toxic masculinity out there now. But
Sure.
like something that is truly masculine to me is that sort of that defending, that protecting, sort of that nurturing sort of nature, and sort of you're a great advocate for it, and especially with that title too. But I know we've started touching on this before as well. But it's true to say that all of us were fighting years of conditioning and entrenchment put upon us by our loved ones, our friends, our culture, which is often, they believe it's in our best interest. While many of us can't see past the species barrier in the beginning, people seem to have an innate nature, to want to help protect their flock. They're trying to be the sheepdogs, as it were. And these conditions can turn these gestures into, they might be kind-hearted, but they turn into destructive and damaging things for not just ourselves, but the animals, the environment. This is what we're seeing through the standard American diet, and what diets all around the globe at the moment, and our habits, our lifestyles. So most of this all stems from, being taught these gestures, and we don't know what the true reality of them are. So many of us, we drink milk because we think our kids are going to have like calcium and strong bones, but really we're giving them osteoporosis and
Hormones,
all that
things.
stuff
Bad
down the
teeth.
line.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing this because we love them, and we weren't taught differently. And so now it's so wonderful to see everyone here in the comments, everyone tuning in today, that we've all learned differently, and we can all start changing these things. But we touched on it before, but you've had a challenge with your sort of mixed family, large mixed family. It's like a tribe, you folks. Like, there's so many of you. And them not all being receptive to those changes. Have you found any ways to sort of cope with this issue?
So, things have changed a lot. So, first off, my wife's family. The first Thanksgiving we had, we took our food over and they had their food there and we ate separately. And then my wife had the conversation with her mom and said, it is difficult to sit down and celebrate something and to seeing animals that we've rescued on your plate, or knowing that there's dairy in those things. And so her mom said, okay. So now anytime we get together with my wife's family, it is a completely vegan meal, top to bottom, and they all enjoy it and love it. And they're not vegan, but I don't know that her mom eats meat anymore at all. So that's a great start. My dad, that was a much harder sell. So, growing up with him, being raised to hunt and fish, that was a staple of what we did. That's one of the things we did to bond, to be out in the woods and do those things. And the first year I stopped hunting with him, he had sent me a picture of a deer that he had killed, like he always would do. And, that wasn't out of the ordinary. And I just simply said, I would appreciate if you wouldn't send that stuff to me anymore. And it started quite a rather ugly conversation. And, he's defending his way of life. And I share this, that I've got a set of pictures that is my great grandpa and my grandpa with a deer that they've killed, my dad and my grandpa with a deer they've killed, and a picture of me and my dad with a deer I've killed. I still have those pictures. I took them to college with me. Like, that was important because that's who we were. So to no longer do that was kind of a big break for my dad. But now, now that we're 5 years into this, we've had multiple conversations, and my dad started to change his tune a little bit when he started to look at the food we ate, the health aspects of it. And now I can tell you that my dad is probably 95% plant-based. He probably will never be vegan, but it's huge strides in the right direction. And now we have great conversations about different vegan foods and stuff that they can eat. And he'll come over to my wife's house and her cooking, and enjoy what she has for us. And he'll brag and boast about that, and then he'll tell us all about everything he had. And it's changed the conversation. So it's definitely changed from where we were. It was hard in the beginning, and I know some people's families are not as receptive, which is unfortunate. But we made a decision that this is what we were going to do. This is how we felt, and they didn't have to like it, but this was a choice that we were going to do. So I know it can be hard when you have that division in family, especially when it comes to holidays and get-togethers and birthdays and things you want to celebrate. But my wife and I, we just couldn't find anything to celebrate when there were dead animals around. So thankfully, we don't have that issue anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great to see how you guys have come through that. I had with my mum, when we went vegan, of course, we had Casper and Dudley, the lambs. And so my mum would comment on the photos and stuff like that. Mint sauce. Because back in Wales, we used to, like a lamb was often, that'd be the weekend roast, because being Brits, we have our roast dinner on the weekend.
Yeah.
That sort of tradition. And yeah, so mum started out that way. And, we were much the same. I suppose it's the whole thing of just sticking to your convictions. And
we didn't bite, did we?
No,
we wanted to be disparaging, but
yeah, like it would annoy the hell out of me when she did it. But I was just like, look, I love you. I'm going to use my compassion for the animals and you in this moment. I'm not going to get riled by it. But yeah, in the end, she's ended up going vegan herself, and
wow, awesome.
It is great. And I think for a lot of us, if we can, just stick with those convictions and sort of lead by example. It's great. Like with your dad, like then getting genuinely curious, about other the foods and whatever aspect it is, because some of us, The animals will be a big one for, I think, a lot of us here. But
Yes.
then health and the environment, I think health is probably the next big one that gets a lot of people. I think
Hmm.
that's one of the things that got my mum because, learning from Dr. Clapper, Dr. Greger, um, all this corpse that we're putting into ourselves and realizing that we shouldn't be eating dead things. But yeah.
Well, anything that's not meant for us. I love though, we have the same issues on my side of the family as well with my adult kid's father who still is in that old entrenched ways as
Mm.
well. And I know it can be a huge thing when it's something that, you've always done as a family and you have that kind of panic, I think, on that other side. Well, this is something I've always done with my dad.
Yeah.
What are we going to do now? And I think that would definitely come from maybe on your dad as well. Well, this is what we've always done. This is our quality time. This is our special time together. What are we going to have now? Not realizing that there's another option, but you guys definitely do, don't you?
We do, and this is something that I've done since I was a kid. So mushroom hunting. So we do it in the spring and we do it in the fall. Different types of mushrooms, different types parts of the year. But that's something that we can still enjoy together, and it's more enjoyable to traipse through the woods without destroying lives. And we just a few weeks ago we rescued a deer, and we were at my dad's, and he got a phone call from a friend, and I could hear the panic in her voice, and she said, "Tom, I'm trying not to cry." She said, there's a baby deer stuck in the fence and I can't get him out. So we were working on something at my dad's house, and so my dad, my wife, and I, we jumped in the car and ran over to his friend's house. And we get there was a thunderstorm that just rolled through, and we find this lady standing there holding an umbrella over this deer. And this deer could not have been more than a day or two old, and
Oh.
its hind leg was caught in it. And so we have a friend who does a lot of wildlife rehab, and so she told us some things to look for, to check and verify. And she said, ultimately, if he can stand and if he can walk, let him be. Mom won't be too far. And so we were able to get him out of the fence, and I stood him up and held him a minute to make sure he was okay and checked his leg. And then as soon as I let him go, he toddled off into the woods, and we could hear Mom traipsing around back there too. So I told my dad, I said, that was much more rewarding, much more enjoyable, much more fun, and much more memorable to save that life than to go out in the woods and take a life. And he said, I'm glad we were here to be able to do that. So hopefully that helps change his mindset. And he has not been deer hunting in the last 3 years now. So those are all wins for me. So that's exciting changes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's like with the mushroom hunting, it's like it's about being out there, isn't it? And
Yes.
getting to encounter this amazing, just being out in nature. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just wonderful, and that's what it's about. And if you're going to shoot something, shoot it with a camera, like, or just enjoy it
Absolutely.
right there in that moment. But we're all on this journey, and it sounds like your dad has come an incredibly long way as well too, and more
Yes.
power to him. And strategy for advocating that we always like to endorse here at Vegan FTA is the use of your past experiences to
Hmm.
strengthen your activism today. And we've all got our own points of connection with that carnist lifestyle, whether that be as former consumers, workers in those industries, or in your case, and in Gareth's here, having been hunters. I understand you also take part in Anonymous for the Voiceless Actions. I'd be really curious to know how you've sort of found your hunting past as an opener during outreach for, in those situations. I mean, got no wish to perpetuate false gender roles, but is this especially effective, do you think, with men who are, let's face it, obviously the associated gender with hunting as a rule?
I think it does help because, those are things that I've done. So I'm able to have that conversation with them and relate to how they were raised, where they were raised, and the traditions that they were taught. Since I can connect to those, I can have those conversations. And, immediately, if someone is a hunter, if they come across us doing a cube demonstration, they, put up this fence and this facade of, oh, I'm a man, I'm a hunter. And then I can break that wall down pretty quick. It helps also that I'm not your what people perceive most vegans to be. So there's not, if you're familiar with Damian Mander, there's no one on this planet that would mess with Damian Mander. Um,
No.
so, so for those who don't know, he is the founder of the International Anti-Poaching Foundation, and he is a former Australian Forces Special Forces sniper and diver. So he is probably one of the baddest men on the planet, and their organization, they hunt poachers and defend rhinos and pangolin in Zimbabwe. So there's this stereotypical idea that people here in the Midwest, where I live, is that these vegans are weak and small and frail people, and that's just not the case. That's not the reality, and I definitely don't fit that mold. So I always say that I'm able to use my past as a tool, not as a crutch. I can't change it as much as I might like to, but I try to use it as a useful tool to advocate for, striking up conversations and encouraging people to look at things differently. And I think it comes across pretty well, and people are more receptive to that than just being told, you're a murderer, which, while it may be true, it seems to be more effective.
Yeah, we're talking just before we actually started the live about this whole thing, and out here in New Zealand, we get a lot of if anybody tries to oppose what's happening in the animal agriculture industry out here, they're always like, you're just city slickers, you don't know anything about the country, and then it's like,
Yeah,
okay, next dairy farmer, hunter,
exactly. They can't pull. I shouldn't say they can't pull the vegan wool over our eyes. That's the thing, isn't it? Because we know more than they do, and if we're in the same industry or same field, we know at least as much as they do, and they know that they can't try and just sort of wiggle their way out of this because we know we can back it up. So
and that's
absolutely.
The thing, we can learn as many facts and statistics as we want, but when you've actually got that in-person experience, that resonates in the way that you talk to somebody. And so, you can be the most well-read person, but not get through to a person, another person, because of, they're not resonating with stats and statistics. They want to resonate with another human being. And it's something we're seeing across all of the advocacy that we're putting out at the moment. And when you were looking at effective strategies and tactics, a lot of the time it's when there's a human connection to an issue that the mainstream sort of general public will connect. So we recently launched Activist episode 42, which was with Lex Rigby talking about undercover investigations. Do check it out if you haven't already, folks. But in that, we talked about how they managed to close down a couple of pig farms. And the main reason they got it closed down was not because it was breaching the safety, like the regulations and all the other things, terrible conditions going on there, but it was because people saw a human worker thumping piglets, which is how they dispatch them. And the thing is, that is standard practice. But that's what got them to close it down, is because people saw that other human interacting with an animal and they could connect with another human being. And so then that really brought it to the fore. So for all of our audience here and our activists, if you have a personal connection, it may not be hunting, it may be who knows, accounting, and you worked with some of these really dodgy animal ag firms or something like that. That could be an interesting story for somebody on the street. That could be something where they could connect. I do my taxes too. Oh, okay. That's probably a terrible example of it. But that's the thing. If you've got that connection to some form of this sort of carnist world, use it, utilize it. It's so great to shine the light.
Resonates for sure.
Yeah. But we're curious to know as well, though, how your experience of using this tactic has sort of worked online as well, with using our past to fuel present day activism, in comparison to the in-person outreach, because often, as I say, we advocate against a lot of stuff, and then people be like, you city slickers. And it's like, well, no, you just don't know me, because we're doing it virtually a lot of the time.
Sure.
And you're someone who's created a fantastic and popular identity in the social media sphere. What has your experience of online outreach been in comparison to these face-to-face? Which do you prefer, and which have you found more effective for yourself?
So I think, more effectively when we're having conversations with people, and this doesn't necessarily just breach across veganism. This is with anything. If you can have a conversation with someone, meet someone where they are, and then start that conversation, you're going to go a lot farther than, arguing, yelling, and screaming. There's a time for that, and it's important to know the difference in what time that is, and that goes the same with if you're doing online activism or in person. I think that my approach. So online, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And as long as they're not being just egregiously nasty and aggressive and hateful, I'll have a conversation with a hunter. And 9 times out of 10, as soon as they start saying some of the, regurgitating things that hunters say, like, oh, we're killing these animals for conservation. As soon as they bring up those arguments, I let them know that, I used to hunt, I used to fish. I'm well aware that that is a illegitimate argument, and then we can have a conversation about it. And I feel that that's been pretty well received. And generally, someone who, as soon as they figure out that, this guy knows what he's talking about, both from personal experience and understanding of how it all works. A lot of times, someone who wants to be argumentative will either fold and leave the conversation, or they will break down that wall and then actually start coming back to reality and agreeance and understanding with things. So I think it works really well. Just in making sure you're having conversations with the people, and when you're speaking for something that's genuine for you, something that's authentic for you, that you've done and experienced, I think that also comes across in the messaging, because it's not someone who grew up in the city, and I'm not knocking anyone who grew up in the city, but someone from the city is not going to come here and tell some farmer and get him to listen to anything. But because I've done those things and I have that experience, I'm able to bridge that gap and have those conversations. And for the most part, I think they're more productive than not. So obviously there's some people that, their head is so far buried in the sand, they're not interested in reality. They're not interested in changing. And my wife will tell me, she said her favorite saying, if I got someone who's, really just kind of hammering away, is block and delete. So, it's important to, in this space, I think it's also important to protect your own personal energy, because veganism, what we're fighting for the animals, what they're going through is horrific. And we've seen it, we understand it, we've seen the videos, we've watched the documentaries, so we know what we're up against. And it's important to protect that energy that you have, because if you allow them to break us down, then we're not going to be productive advocates for the animals. And so it's very important to do that as well.
Yeah, we definitely have to be in it for the long haul, don't we?
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
it's a long battle ahead, and there's so many things that we have to look after in order to get to that end. And we talk a lot about that on this channel, but we love everybody here, respect where they're at, in terms of like even with our diets and stuff like that. We've got some wonderful junk food vegans here, but we've also got a lot of great whole food, plant-based, and people focusing more on making sure that they're getting the a good balance of their health, their activism, and everything all together. And love to everyone. There's no discrimination in how you want to eat, as long as you advocate for animals. I absolutely love you.
Yes.
But if we do the best for ourselves in all manners, whether that's not engaging with the trolls, like have those conversations if they're open. But you can tell usually pretty quick, can't you, when someone is just like they're brick walling, they're just not gonna have it. I'm a terrible one. I'd spend ages, Jackie can I'd say about this, I spent ages like just crafting one message back to somebody, and I have meticulously rewrote it 100 times, and I send it and then they ping back to me, and I'm like, bugger, I've got to try and I've got to try and write another message back now, and I'm just
there goes another half a day, and I'm like, you're still doing that? Is it really worth it? But to be fair, he has had the last word on several things, and he's been great. He's a master of the Socratic method. But I love in your content. he's a pretty good Socratic trainee or whatever, but I love in your content. I mean, you've got you're all about the animals, but you've got a very holistic, very encompassing view of veganism in the content that you produce. And I love one of the things, I mean, I could share all of your content all the time, because I think it all resonates so much. And I think if you haven't checked out Chris's pages before, I think it would be the same for anybody really. And I love the way in some of the content that you share that, you say you're not apologizing, this is about the animals. I'm not apologizing. If you're offended, so be it. But I'm not apologizing for saying
Yeah.
the truth, for saying what I want to say, and it's brilliant. We'll talk more about that soon. But you're joining us today from Ohio in the US, and we all like to think that our counties, our states, or even our entire nations are becoming more progressive towards a more compassionate lifestyle. But sadly, more often than not, the reality is that we still have a pretty big uphill battle to be heard locally.
Yes.
And this is why we sort of believe it's paramount to learn as many tactics and strategies for advocacy as possible to be able to advocate effectively wherever we are. But another key element in learning this is our geography, as in, where am I trying to advocate? What is my local culture, and how can I best utilize that? So I'd love to know, what is the culture like in Ohio when you've experienced that? Where is it resonating in regards to veganism?
So there's, we live in a rural community. So we live in an agricultural community just across the street. We have neighbors that are raising animals for slaughter. That's the community we live in. So from a climate standpoint, my kids, when they go to school, they get made fun of for the stuff that they bring. And then my kids are really good. Like, do you want to try this? And they follow that approach, and their friends try it, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's really good." Or if their friends are over and they have dinner with us, they're like, "Oh my God, this Beyond Burger was really good," and they go home and tell their parents, and their parents just slam the door on that. So that can be hard. The Dayton area. So Dayton is probably, I don't know, probably sixth or seventh largest city in Ohio. And the market is changing here. People's perspective and the demand for, vegan products, plant-based products, vegan options at restaurants is booming. And if you go to Columbus, Ohio, which is the capital of Ohio, that is one of the best hotspot areas in the country. I think it was number 17 on the top 25 in the United States for the vegan market, I guess, if you will. And there's so many wonderful places to go eat. One of our favorites is Fourth and State. If you're ever in and around Columbus, Ohio, definitely stop in and check them out. But there's so many options. So, I know there are negative things when it comes to capitalism. But if you look at the vegan market, you look at the plant-based market, they're projecting that that's going to be almost a $20 to $30 billion market by, I think, 2025, 2026. So it tells you the demand's going, so the appetite is increasing for these things. And, you talked about it a minute ago, Jackie. You said, some people come at this for their health. Some people come at it for environmental impact. And to me, obviously I'm vegan for the animals, but I welcome those individuals to start their journeys, because if you're here for your health, you're eating whole food plant-based, which helps the animals. If you're here for the environment, you're eating plant-based or at least vegan junk food, which also helps the animals. And, so ultimately those are, win-win-wins. So anything we can do to encourage people to try new things, to start supporting different companies that are producing vegan or plant-based products, I think is all good advocacy and things we can do to help move the needle in the right direction. But you're absolutely right, Gareth. We do have a large hill still to climb.
Yeah.
I think people are opening to the idea of it, but we definitely have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Well, hopefully all of our advocates here, are helping to make that hill a bit smaller. With many hands, they make light work, isn't it?
Yes.
And, yeah, it's good to see that, there is that, at least the change in the market there. And yeah, we know all too well as well about the whole, you're trying to introduce healthier, more compassionate things to folks, and yeah, just slamming the door. We had a recent case of that within my family, which I won't go into. I'll ruffle some feathers maybe later. Is that a vegan saying now or not?
As long as you kindly ruffle feathers, like
giving the
chicken's
chicken a
like
good
a
old...
bit of a
Yeah. It may not be.
I'm still terrible with some way. I speak in a lot of these sort of sayings and stuff, and isn't.
It's not till you go vegan, is it? It's like, oh, did I say that? Oh dear, is that what that means? That's not good. But, hey, I see we've got Daryl here from Defender of Animals Clothing, who says a vegan sheepdog is a legend. Very well said, Daryl. Daryl is the guy behind our vegan FTA shirts.
Okay.
Defender of Animals Clothing, if you check them out online, he has done a whole range of vegan FTA clothing, which is very, very lovely of him, and the proceeds of which go to help supporting our activism. So
That's awesome.
And who doesn't like to say that they're vegan for the animals? I'm pointing to the wrong thing, but there.
Got to remember, it's the other way. And
yeah,
Exactly.
we get asked all the time, what does vegan FTA mean? It's like, for the animals, of course, but it's a great conversation starter. Yeah.
Yes, it is. My wife, we were she's got vegan sheepdog gear like I have, and
It's great.
we were at the hospital. Our middle son had broke his arm, and so we had to transport him to Children's Hospital because they had to reset his arm. They couldn't do it at the emergency department we were at, and so to do that on a kid, they usually sedate them a little bit. So they were giving him some medicine to kind of get him prepped, and there were probably 15, maybe 20 nurses and doctors in this room. And the doctor literally has my son's arm in his hand, and he's, trying to make sure he gets it where he wants it. And he looks up at my wife. He goes, "What's the vegan sheepdog?" And so, and she goes, "It's him." And she points to me. And then I kind of shared a brief snippet of, we try to advocate for being kind to animals, and we help with animal rescues. And it's a page that I run where I try to reach as many people as I can. He goes, "Well, I guess I shouldn't have worn my fishing hat today." And then in front of all these people, one of the nurses was like, "It's a healthier way to fuel your body." And it's like in front of all these people, like, just because seeing, just like your logo, you see that stuff and it sparks a conversation. You never know who it may touch. So it's an awesome way to get people talking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wear your beliefs, definitely.
Yeah, I had that recently. I was wearing, actually, Defender of Animals. Actually, I was wearing the Defender.
Yes, you were in the
Defender of
supermarket,
Animals hoodie. No, the Whole Foods place.
Yes,
some
it
shop.
was.
Anyway,
yes.
yeah, and so all of a sudden I got asked, what's Defender of Animals? And I was just like, I was sort of taken aback because I really wasn't expecting it. Like usually I've got sometimes I have anti-can and stuff like that, and they have some great shirts as well and stuff like, which are more blatant. Like I've got one, go vegan, sacrifice nothing, and it's like this goat thing, metal, but I had my Defenders on and stuff like that, and they're asking what it was, and it took me back, and I was like, well, I'm a full-time animal rights activist, and I spend all of our time advocating to stop people from committing this cruelty, and then with the hope of animal liberation. She's like, "Oh, well, that's nice, that's good on you." And so
you've got your vegan AF beanie as well, haven't you? And he wore that the other day, and this both of them were older ladies, weren't they? And she said, "Fight the good fight, keep going, guys." And we're like, "Oh, thanks."
And that's the thing, you never know who's got like that little bit of insight, that little bit of knowledge, and then just seeing folks wearing that stuff, it just triggers that conversation. And
you don't even have to open your mouth either. How people always say, "How do you know someone's vegan?" They'll tell you, but you don't even have to do that. You
don't even have to do that. They just come at you.
Keep wearing your beliefs.
Yeah. Why do you always have to ask me why I'm vegan?
Well, that's the old saying. If I said I had a vegan hot dog, my friend's like, "Why do you got to say it's vegan?" And then if I say I had a hot dog, they'd be like, "I thought you were vegan."
Exactly. Can't wait.
I was out in our community, and during the workday, and a gentleman crossed my path, and he had a hat that said "Outreach for Animals," or Animal Outreach. And I said, "What is that for?" And he started talking to me about it. So there's a new documentary called The Conservation Game. Tim Harrison, he's a former police officer and EMT here in Ohio, and they got started everyone has seen the Tiger King shenanigans on Netflix. They got started in the big cat animal trade and exotic animal trade, and stopping some of these exotic breeders. So I've been able to connect with some of them, and trying to encourage them, that compassion they have for these big cats. First off, The Conservation Game, very important, very good, very powerful documentary. I would suggest people check that out. It helped get the Columbus Zoo, where Jack Hanna was the resident of, that's his home zoo. Because of that, they had the AZA, which is a zoo accreditation program. They lost their accreditation because they were trafficking and breeding animals instead of actual conservation. So there's so many aspects and things we can talk about. When you see someone's hat or someone's shirt, you never know where that conversation is going to go. So met some really cool people through that organization as well.
Absolutely. Gareth's just looking it up
I've
now.
got
We must
the
check that out. It's funny,
Here's the link,
actually,
folks.
not vegan, and I would love to think that perhaps this person would be, but we're fans of Impractical Jokers. They just make me die laughing, honestly. And Joe, one of them, we were watching some shorts, weren't we, last night? And in one episode, Joe had Be Kind. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I've got a Be Kind shirt.
Right? Yeah.
And then in the next one, he's got Adopt, Don't Shop on his t-shirt. So I'm like, okay,
Maybe.
he obviously cares about animals. How much do you care, Joe? How much do you care? I want to know, is Joe vegan? And it's like, so often we're kind of like, oh, that's a shame they're not, or I see someone in the supermarket and I'm like, oh, look, they've got soy milk, they've got dairy-free cheese, maybe they're vegan. And I'm looking at them like, are you like us? And then they'll go and put, something else that's just completely
Here's
not.
a lump of corpse.
Dash my hopes, yeah. But one day it will happen.
The funny part about that conversation, so if we're out in the grocery store and I see someone's got Beyond Meat in their cart, I will strike up a conversation with them and start talking to them. And my wife is like 3 aisles away. She's like, I don't want anything to do. Like, she's much more shy and reserved than I am. So, but yeah, anytime you see someone, or if you go to lunch and you hear someone order, the vegan option, you're like, hey, could we be friends? So it's always fun.
Absolutely. Hey, we've got a question for you here from Daryl at Defender of Animals, and it's a great question because I love you can hear Chris's voice, and we'll talk about your podcast soon. I could listen to you talk all day. It's just so easy to listen to. And Daryl has asked here, Chris, how do you stay so calm and level-headed in your video content? I struggle to curb the anger, which is that's real.
That's tough, right? So I personally, the way I view it, I'm trying to see the end result. The last thing that I want to do is turn people off. I want them to hear the message that I'm trying to put out there. So if I go out there with that angry vegan stereotype, most people say, skip. But if I pose a question in a way that I try to talk to people how I wish someone would have talked to me, and I try to share content in a manner I wish that someone would have talked to me. So that doesn't resonate with everyone by any means. I wish it would, but not everyone is like me. They don't think like me. They don't have the thought process I do. So I just try to be kind and compassionate, because my goal is to engage in conversations to get more people to start their journey. And personally, I feel that I get a better response from people when I try to keep that level tone to things, and spark those questions and thoughts. And sometimes I get it right, sometimes I don't.
Oh, well, that's a great answer. Yeah, I know for us, when we've been doing stuff, I find it's better if I take the time to actually write out a script or something, even if I'm doing a short video. Is that something that you do as well, just to help you? Then you're not just going off the adrenaline. I think most people can...
I'm gonna tell myself, and
it's all coming out now.
So I usually don't write a script. Usually it's something that comes to mind, and if I don't have time, to get a quiet moment in the house is tough when you got 7 kids. So sometimes, I'm out in the garage, I'm working on stuff, and I'll start to do a video, or I'll tell my wife, I'm going to go out and make a video real quick. And she rolls her eyes because she knows it's not going to be real quick. And so usually what happens, I try to keep it in that minute time frame, because, people's attention span is about that big sometimes. And mine is
Sorry,
too.
I wasn't listening.
Exactly. So I'll go out there with the intent, and I'll go over a minute, or I misspeak, and it takes me 20 tries to get that video right. And then she'll come out. She's like, you've been out here for like 45 minutes trying to get a 1-minute video. So, so maybe I should start with a script to get that done quicker, but I will work on that. So that's funny.
It depends how long it takes you to write the script.
Once again, I'm feeling we must be brothers from another mother.
Yes, sir.
I think your wife and I would get on famously as well.
Yeah, because I do the exact same, and I do a lot of. Even yesterday, I was just trying to record a short blurb thing, and 4 or 5 attempts down the line. This is meant to be a 2-minute job, and
you did a great job. It was fast yesterday.
But I am definitely somebody who's prone to. I think everyone can hear it in the way I speak on these lives, and whenever we're doing stuff, I get caught up in the adrenaline. I blame it on my Welshness, and I get excited when I'm talking. I'm talking, and so I'm getting passionate, and I'm getting faster, louder. I don't even know what I'm saying by the end of it anyway. So
and then he kind of finishes that trail and it's like, what were we talking about? What was that?
My wife will accuse me. They're just saying, keep your ducks in a row. I don't have ducks. I don't have rows. I have squirrels, and they go from branch to branch. And she says, you are hard to follow sometimes. So I feel your pain, Gareth.
I love that analogy for it. But I think on the topic, this worked in really well. We just love seeing all of this stuff. We've talked about all the great memes and stuff. I keep on thinking, I'm sure you must have shared at some stage when you're talking about the mushroom hunting. I love that meme of the guy with a shotgun. He's got all the courgettes lined up and stuff like that, and his cat sitting by it, and there's just so much great, joyful stuff on your page. And we love being able to share your content as Vegan FTA here. We love collaborating in that way. And you're getting extremely adept at putting these things out. The truth is you were taking 45 minutes for a 1-minute video. Maybe that's the secret to it. But how did you get started in all this and doing the memes, the quote images, and all these sort of shenanigans?
So when I first started my journey, I didn't know how to find my voice or start putting content out there. So I did a lot of resharing of other memes and content that I'd find. And then the context or the text of the post was, my voice and what I was trying to find. And as I found, how I wanted to share my content, how I wanted to put stuff out there, I don't want to say I branded anything, but I started to kind of this way I do it. And I found some tools that work for me and some processes that I go through. So I'll put, a post up and then, in the description. And sometimes, unfortunately, because again, that short attention span, sometimes people don't read the content that I've written, and they will comment without reading that, and they may not get the full gist of it. So, I just, again, even through that, I try to put it out there in a way I wish someone would have phrased it to me or said it to me or had that conversation with me, and hopes along the way that other people pick up on some of that stuff. And sometimes I'm putting reels out there on Instagram, or I'm posting memes and stuff that I've created or quotes from people, and trying to share that stuff out there to reach as many people as we can, because the more people we can wake up, the better off we're going to be.
Absolutely. And like I said, you have such a great it's a great collection of content. It really is. It appeals to everything, whether you're trying to get through to somebody about health or or the environmental. There's all the reasons, and of course the animals is a huge focus as well. And there's just so much on that. I was blown away when I found out that you have 7 kids, because you're so prolific. It's like, how on earth do you get the time? It's fantastic. But there really is something for everybody on the Vegan Sheepdog, and it's such a catchy and easy name to remember. So please, if you're not already, please follow the Vegan Sheepdog on Instagram. Gareth's doing all the sharey stuff. The one that he's just posted has got all of the links there in the comments. And we were listening to a great interview that you did with Alicia from A Kind Life recently.
Yes.
And you briefly spoke about the 28 Vegans in 28 Days interview series that you did, which actually turned out to be 29 vegans in 28 days. That is such a brutal schedule.
Seriously brutal.
You're still standing. You're still standing. I mean, we all know very well how hard it is with so many moving parts, so much organization, different time zones, prep work needed for each talk. For all our viewers that have just subscribed, what sort of a schedule are you running on now? Is it sort of daily, weekly, monthly content that our viewers can look forward to?
I want to admit that schedule was brutal on me to get everything scheduled and do that series, but it was worse on my wife trying to keep all the kids and all the dogs quiet through all of those interviews. So thankfully she's a good sport and a really big help. So I appreciate that. So now I need to get more on a schedule. So we can talk about my podcast if you like here in a few, but I need to get on a better schedule for that. So planning time for that to be able to sit down and do the interview, produce it, and put things together. And I'm not a professional with this. I use a piece of software that does it. Maybe if I get there someday, I can find somebody that can help me actually produce it to a level that raises the quality. But for now, I'm what you get. So, so typically, I use some of the basic social media tools where I can, if I want to sit down for a little bit, I may write one or two, and I can schedule those to go out. I try to get something out about every day, if not, a couple times a day, but just when I find time. And fortunately, I do work in the IT world, so I'm almost always got my fingers on a computer or my phone. So sometimes I will be in an office waiting for somebody for a meeting, and I may crank something out real quick, or I may be at home working on something, and I take a break and get a couple things posted and ready to schedule. So, no real schedule this time, but I need to do better, especially when it comes to the podcast to help share people's stories.
Well, we look forward to talking about that right now,
Yes.
actually.
And whatever, I mean, it's very, very listenable. Whatever you're doing with the podcast right now, it's great.
But I just want to right now, call to action. As I say, the link is in the description to, it's the like the link tree, the flow code, I believe it's called, with all the socials. For everyone watching, make sure you go and click out on that link and follow at least one of those profiles, if not all of them. It'd be fantastic if you did all of them. Just so then you can keep up to date, and then see this gold as it comes out, on the daily, on the twice daily, or whenever there's time. So
whenever Chris has 45 minutes in the garage.
Yes, right, yeah.
The kids have been corralled, so so yeah, please make sure you do click on that link and give the Vegan Sheepdog a follow on your favorite social media platforms. But yes, how it all began, brilliant name. I understand it was named by your followers. Someone suggested that name for you, but it's a series dedicated to sharing vegan journeys, deep diving into that connection, sharing experiences, triumphs, mistakes, and much more. At the time of recording, there are 2 episodes already out there live, ready for you folks to check out. For those who haven't yet had the pleasure, like us, to listen in already and aren't already loving it, would you like to introduce it to our audience today properly and what this podcast means to you?
Well, I don't know how much I do properly. I do things in my own way, and sometimes it works and sometimes it don't. Yes, exactly. So I wanted to start this podcast, and I'd been talking about getting one going for a while, and I thought about the idea of sharing people's journeys. Like, what was that final crescendo? Because we all have those moments in our lives where you've shown another animal compassion, or you've been kind to animals of some nature. And even if you haven't made that full connection yet, we've all done something in our lives. One of the stories that relates to me, I remember jumping in a frozen pond to rescue an old man's dog. I stripped down to my boxers and I went in after this dog because that's what needed to be done. But yet when I left, I went and ordered a spicy chicken sandwich at Wendy's. So I want to share, those parts of those stories, and then what it was for that final hurdle, that final straw that broke, that people say, okay, look, I get this. Just like me visiting a sanctuary, I get it. I'm in. Let's do this. I think what's powerful is when people share those stories is that when you find someone that you can relate to. So you find a story that fits something in your life, whether it be by profession, by trade, by hobby, by whatever you're into. If you find someone that kind of you're like, wow, that sounds like me. Like Gareth and I apparently are brothers from another mother.
Yeah.
Once you hear that from someone and you make those correlations, I feel that more people can connect to that and may start their journey. So I want to get more people out, and I want to share, of course, I've got a couple people on tap that I've already got scheduled. Damien Mander, who I talk about because that's kind of one of my mentors that I really look up to. He's going to join me for an episode, but I want folks who, I've got friends who I've connected with over Instagram and Facebook and through activism that I want to share their story, even if they've only got, let's say 200 followers, not because their platform is important, but their message and their story and their journey is important. And I think that shows other people that, oh, well, my uncle, my father, my neighbor, my cousin, my coworker, whoever, they can relate to that. And, hopefully that'll help other people start their journey. So we'll see where it goes and see how it evolves from there. But that's kind of the intent behind it at this point.
I think it's brilliant. There's a lot. I love everything about the podcast. Like I say, like I can just listen to you all day. I just have, them going one after the other because it's just such an easy, a great listen. It's very informative. What we've listened to already. But we sort of said, and Gareth said, we always like to start our interviews with saying, to people, oh, how did you go vegan? But it's often so much more than that. You really can make a whole episode out of somebody's, ethical journey, their connection. And it's so great and much needed to have that deep dive. And it's just great to learn that about people. And there's so much to resonate with. And I think with you as well, knowing just how strong of an animal advocate you are, I totally expected it to be quite hard hitting. Animals, just that really, I shouldn't say aggressive because it's not your style, but I thought it was going to be really animal focused, but I just love that it is very much encompassing that whole everything about veganism and about where we need to be heading in order to make those changes. And in Gareth's case, it was Dudley that got him to make that ethical connection. But before that, he just, had food envy because my food was looking and tasting better than his. His grandfather was diagnosed with dementia, and he listened to me watching What the Health and Forks Over Knives. And so, everybody's got those ways in, and it doesn't mean that you're less of an advocate or you're less passionate for the animals. Look at what he's doing now, and it's, and there's so many people like that are still amazing advocates. And it just shows that it really is a journey to get to where we need to be.
Yeah.
It really is, it is a journey. And, I talk about that a lot. And I think it's so powerful, and I encourage everyone to share their story. It doesn't have to be on a public page. And I talk about this often that, anything you can do to share, whether it be a meal or an experience or something that you can share with, even if it's just with your close personal friends or your family. I know family can be difficult on some of this, but at some point, someone's going to come around. Like one of my friends, we joke about this. So I was asked to speak at the Columbus Vegan Fest back in 2019. And prior to that, he said, well, we're going to come throw hot dogs at you while you talk. And then it wasn't a few months later that he says, hey, what's one of your favorite family vegan recipes you guys sit down and a meal you enjoy? And so, it's powerful when you share those stories with your friends, your family, your coworkers, those people in your circle, because, while celebrities influence us a lot, you see someone sharing something about Beyond Meat or, another product that's out there. I think people in our close circles are much more influential, and it's easier to have those conversations. And that's just, I encourage anyone to share your story. And I think it's powerful for those that are in your circle, even if it's not powerful for anyone else. Those people know who you are and they get where you're at and they understand what you're saying, what you're doing, and how you feel. And I think it's a great way to start.
Yeah, that's a fantastic action step for everyone today. As we look to start closing off this live,
we've got the 40-year-old vegan here as well joining us today. You've got all the fans coming out.
But this is a great action step for everybody, and for regular viewers of the show, that often, once again, we talk about these sort of points as well. And we've done a few creative sort of activists lately, and this whole thing of, whenever you put something out there, you never know how somebody else is going to respond to it. You can put it out, you can put the most heartfelt thing out there and nobody blinks an eye at it. It gets unnoticed. But, you may put something out, you like your dinner, you like something that's more trivial to you, and it will resonate with 100 people, go viral and all sorts. You just never know how these things are going to go, but never stop, that expectation of what you think the effects might be, hold you back or push you into this. Just do what's passionate, and let people resonate with you. And that's the thing. I think we resonate better when we're just being ourselves. When we're not trying to be something else. You just give them that true expression. And the 40-year-old vegan in the comments here from YouTube. It's lovely to see that. Well, I'm sorry you had to experience working as a slaughterhouse inspector, but I can see that would be a great.
Very powerful place to advocate from, isn't it?
Somewhere to advocate from, and something that hopefully, I don't think there'll be many people can necessarily resonate with that job, but then resonating with you as an individual and your experience of seeing where their meat is coming from, I think could be a great advocacy tool. And so, yeah, thank you for commenting. And, you know, I just want to also herald back to with Damien Mander. I'm looking forward to that episode.
We love Damien.
If you need to do any
Yes.
show research ahead of time, or for any of our other folks who want to get a little head start on Damien Mander as well, we do actually have an activist episode with him as well in season 2, I believe it was. Go on our YouTube, check out our activist playlist, and Damien Mander's in there. And so we had a discussion, but yeah, I wish we'd had more time in that to go into his deep dive of his how it all began. To give the podcast
I want to share something about Damien. So, you know, Damien's someone who's out there and, you know, a fairly big figure in this movement. And what he's doing is just powerful from a even a global standpoint, right? Sometimes when you meet someone like that, you've kind of maybe artificially put them up on a pedestal. He's one of those people that is the absolute genuine real deal. You know, I may have had him here, and after we got to spend some time outside of an event, we went to a bar and we grabbed a couple beers with my wife and Vimbai from Akashinga. And so he may have been here. This is my idea where he was, and man, I tell you what, he was way up here. So he's a world-class individual, and he is who he says he is. And it's nice because sometimes, unfortunately, some people aren't. So if you're not familiar with Damien, feel free to, you know, buckle up and start learning. So he's an outstanding individual.
Oh,
absolutely is.
He's lovely. He is, and yeah, he's a big inspiration for me. And
look at the three guys here. There's
Right.
Chris, Gareth, there's Damien. You're all, you know. Well, Damien's not hairy, but you know, none of you are dying of protein deficiency. None
Nope.
of you are like keeling over at the table or anything.
no, I can just surprise you all with that one. Just drop dead all of a sudden, but you know,
I don't know how to work this thing for starters. But...
Oh yeah, you'll be stuck in the live stream forever. But yeah, actually, we've done, I don't know how many interviews now, in the hundreds now. It would probably be. And I still get nervous about, you know, meeting some of these people. Like when we had Damien beforehand, I was like,
we're not
oh no,
worthy.
you know,
We're
we're not worthy. And you know, it's one of those things that when you meet them, especially in this movement, there are some predators, there are some false people, but you know, so many of these other folks, you know, like Damien, just so genuine, just so lovely. And yeah, just so down to earth as well, because I think when we're all on this compassionate journey, we all have that point of connection. And you know, it's like today, it's like meeting old friends, or in my case, you know, it's like meeting a long distance brother. You know, like we're both squirrels in the tree, I think. So,
Yes, sir. The same tree, apparently.
We're all nuts. So but yes, we should probably close off the live stream for today. This has just been such a lovely discussion. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, folks, there are links in the comments to this, so you can go and follow the Vegan Sheepdog on all of your platforms. Subscribe to the podcast as well, because that'll be fantastic. Waiting for Damien now, but also all the other guests are just fantastic. There's Nate and
Mark Ramirez. Yes.
Yeah, those two are fantastic episodes. So yeah, buckle yourself in, folks, and get your listening hat on and get stuck in. So thank you so much for joining us today, Chris.
Thank you for everything you do.
I really appreciate your guys' time and all your efforts, what you guys do, using your voice and your platform. I appreciate you inviting me on. I'm honored to come talk to you guys. I really appreciate all the content you guys do, because, you know, it's not easy continually creating some of this stuff and continually talking about it. It is very important what you guys are doing. So, and I'm very thankful for all the support from you guys. So thank you guys very much.
Well, thank you so much.
We will continue to follow and support, and never ever, you know, I think we know ourselves. You can never underestimate the power of social media. It was a social media post on Facebook that made me go vegan. That was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So you know, it works. Even if people don't rush to like your post, because you know they're not going to if the truth hits hard. But it doesn't mean that they don't resonate. They don't.
That's fact. And you know, I talk about planting seeds. They may not like your posts, especially, so let's say you're not running a public page, you just post stuff just for your friends and your family and your circle, right? They may not like your post, but they see it, they read it, they think about it, and at some point they're going to contact you and say, hey, how do I get started? And that's an awesome feeling when that happens.
Yeah. Well, folks, we had an action step just before, you know, maybe try sharing your vegan story after you've subscribed to the Vegan Sheepdog's social media platforms.
Yes, try sharing some of his content if you
Yeah,
haven't
share
already.
some of his content or put your
He
vegan
just
story
nails
out
it.
there and see how many seeds it's planting. So yeah, I want to thank everyone in the comments today for tuning in, asking questions and giving their input. Yeah, once again, thank you, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you.
We will end it there today. And yeah, just thank everybody. Enjoy the rest of your mornings, your afternoons, your nights,
Wherever you are.
wherever you are. You know, keep fighting for the animals and keep on out there, eh, folks? So have a good time.
See ya.